So why ideal client is so important in your brand, you want to know exactly who you're speaking to, because if you speak to everyone, you literally speak to no one.
Welcome back to For Entrepreneurs by Entrepreneurs. I'm Eric Verdi. With us this week is Cassandra Caruso with Wild Dreams Co. She is a brand strategy specialist, also does graphic designs and builds out websites on Squarespace, but we're going to really dive into her superpower today, which is brand strategy. She's got an awesome brand board to share with us. We were looking at it on the pre-interview. It's kind of neat to see how a brand and how a logo kind of comes to life. And she's going to walk through those steps with us today. But before we get into the meat of the interview and her brand strategy superpower, Cassandra, why don't you give our listeners your backstory?
Sure. So I have actually been a graphic designer for 14 years. I am self-taught, and what that means is I didn't really go to school for graphic design. I kind of got thrown into it at various jobs that I've been with, and I stuck with it from there. And about 3 years ago is where I really dove deep into branding. It was because I really fell in love with the aspect of working one-on-one with women versus just doing random graphic designs for different companies. I knew that I really wanted to help women in a different way, and that was kind of how I dove into branding. I am a mom of 2 boys who are 4 and 8. We have lots of animals, 2 dogs and 3 cats. We really love animals in our house. And I am super girly, even though I'm surrounded by boys all the time. I love Pinterest and the color pink, and you'll see that when you go to my brand. It's definitely a reflection of that and who I am as a person. I think that branding is so important in your business, especially when just starting out. It is really the emotion that brings it to life. And that's really where I got so connected with branding, because it was so emotional for me and really connecting with those women one-on-one.
Awesome. So tell us a story. You know, we all kind of grew up and wanted to have a job, and you know, you never really, at least I'm probably older than you, but I never grew up thinking I want to be an entrepreneur per se, have my own business. Tell us a story about how you transitioned from the corporate world to being an entrepreneur. Was there a pivotal moment? Was there you're working 80-hour weeks? Did your husband come home and say, you're done? Like, what's the story of transitioning to being an entrepreneur?
So I actually worked 6 days a week. When we got our house, I knew that it would be a struggle, like when we first moved into our house. So I was working 6 days a week and only seeing my kids like 1 day a week, which was Sundays. That was my only day off. I was working my corporate job and then a Saturday job on top of that. And I knew at one point that I wanted to be more involved in my kids' lives. Like something wasn't right. It wasn't fair that I had to work so much, and I really wanted that freedom. So I really started to look at ways, like do my research, like on Facebook, and at that time Instagram wasn't as popular, but it was really on Facebook where I tried to look up different entrepreneurs, see what other people were doing, and kind of get that feel for it. And I really took a turn and finally decided to invest in myself and work with a coach. And that's kind of really where I learned the more business aspect and how, I mean, it's not easy being a business owner for sure, but taking the right steps into that direction to become a business owner and really have that freedom of my own schedule and be a part of my kid's life, so that was really important for me. And that's kind of where I really stepped into that entrepreneur journey.
So who are some entrepreneurs that you look up to, that you follow, that, because a couple of mine, especially in the podcast world, is John Lee Dumas. Like when I first started doing podcasts, Entrepreneurs on Fire is his, and he's probably over 2,500 episodes now. Just the interview style. So my first podcast, Frederick Advice Givers, was kind of modeled after what he did with Entrepreneurs on Fire, and then more recently Gary Vaynerchuk. Just loving his overall brand strategy, his content. So who are a couple entrepreneurs that you follow?
So the first entrepreneur that I've ever followed is probably Marie Forleo. I really love her. She's got this like really great energy and like this spunk about her. And she has this quote that I kind of live by. It's called "Everything is figure outable." And that was just something that has stuck with me for so long over the years of following her and really seeing how she evolved her business on her own. And another one was, I really like Jenna Kutcher.
Mm-hmm.
She also has a really big podcast as well. But I think that she has like really great energy and she's a really great teacher. And she shares her story, how she really became someone with like a $300 eBay camera or Craigslist camera or something. And I just really love seeing them rise like to the occasion on their own and really building up their business and building up other women with them.
Awesome. So I believe that each entrepreneur that is successful has a superpower, like something they do really well, either for themselves or their clients, or they teach a course, or they do something very, very well. Let's talk about your superpower today. Tell us what it is and how it kind of evolved.
Okay. So definitely branding is definitely my superpower. I know I do lots of things, but branding is definitely number one. I really enjoy taking my client's vision and bringing it to life. I have this kind of like intuition thing within that kind of really allows me to dig deeper and ask my clients those questions that I can really envision what they're looking for. So it definitely, the part of that is the logo design aspect of the branding, and really taking what they have done, going deep with them, with their ideal client, with their mood boards, and then bringing that to life through their logo design.
So how did you figure out you were really good at branding and brand strategy? Was it something you were innate? Was it something you had in the corporate world? Like, was there a pivotal moment? Like, tell us a story. Like, was there a first client that like, man, I'm really good at this?
Yeah, so I actually learned branding like from my first coach that I worked with in 2018. She taught us like a little bit about the brand strategy and the aspect of it. So once I dove deep into it and I learned more myself and I started to work with a few clients, I realized that every client was literally telling me the same thing. Like, you're in my head. How are you doing that? Like, this is exactly what I wanted. I've worked with other people before and you literally gave me exactly what was in my head. Like, I don't even know how you're doing that. So I've had so many people tell me that over and over. So I definitely think that's how I kind of got more confident with branding and really incorporated the strategy part into it. And the strategy part is more about learning who my client is. So that is learning who their ideal client is so that their brand can attract that exact ideal client that they're looking for. And really going deep into their goals and seeing what their aspirations are for their business. So I think that's part of how I got more into the branding part of it, was really finding myself and investing in myself and learning more about the strategy myself and doing the work on myself and seeing it work basically, because at one point I was attracting clients that I did not want to work with, that were, everybody has those pain in the ass clients.
Yep.
But so I learned to do the work on myself, and then once it started to work for me, I was able to incorporate it for my clients as well.
Beautiful. All right. So I'm a small business owner, entrepreneur, and I come to you. Like, show us this brand board. Share your screen if you don't mind, and kind of walk us through the steps. Like, when you're meeting with a new client, when you get a new client in and they want to come up with a logo or graphic design or overall strategy and a theme for their business. Like, we all as entrepreneurs kind of have an impression. I know I have an idea of what I want, but I never know how to get to that point, especially like if you see the shirt today, like our logo
Mm-hmm.
for the podcast here.
Mm-hmm.
like I sent to I gave him the backstory, sent to a graphic designer, and he basically came up with the idea. And I think it's much better than anything I could ever come up with, and way outside of my realm of my expertise. So as a brand strategy specialist, like kind of walk us through this brand board and how you come up with strategy and brands for clients.
Okay, so first thing, what I do is I always have a phone call with each one of my clients. We have a phone call and we review their ideal client together. So why ideal client is so important in your brand, you want to know exactly who you're speaking to, because if you speak to everyone, you literally speak to no one. And I'm sure you've spoken to like niche experts and that kind of thing as well.
That was actually our last interview, so that's pretty funny.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. So she probably said the same exact thing. That is so important when it comes to branding because you want it to reflect who you want to attract. So that is the step one that I have them do, their ideal client worksheet, and it goes in depth, like where does your client hang out? What does her day look like? Is she on Facebook or Instagram? What kind of content does she like to consume? Those are just like a few questions that I ask them. And then from there, what I have my client do is go onto Pinterest, which is a great visualization tool. And they kind of pin the things that feel emotional to them with their brand. So for example, this brand, I created her mood board. Her vibe is very bold, fierce, very free-spirited.
So she sent these to you, what we're seeing now. She sent these to you.
So she pinned them in her Pinterest board.
Okay.
So she put these as a collection in her Pinterest board.
Gotcha.
What I do is I take the images from the Pinterest board and I create a cohesive mood board from those images. So I will go through like the Pinterest board and kind of like weed out the things that don't really make sense and kind of make it cohesive and bring it all together. And this is kind of where I create the color story from. So this mood is like fierce, wild, free-spirited. She wanted a little bit of like animal print in there. So that's kind of the overall mood. And then from there, I choose the colors. So you can see that some of these colors are brought in from the mood board below.
Okay.
And then from there, once that's approved, I go into the logo design. So this is her logo design. She wanted a touch of gold foil in there. We really focused on the brown color because sometimes with logo design, people get a little bit confused and they want to use all of their colors in the logo design, which is not always the case because an overall brand is consistent across the board. So say you have brown and gold in here, but your pictures on Instagram or Facebook, you can bring in the pink and the green into your other photos. So we start with the logo design. Once that's approved, then I go into an icon, give you an icon, an alternative logo. So this one doesn't have the for the free-spirited entrepreneur, so she can use on different places. And then a submark logo. And the submark logo could be for say you have an ebook or a workbook that you want to create, you can use that as like a little stamp on there, or even for stickers if you have like packaging design and you create products. And then I give all of my clients their fonts that they use so that they can use them consistently across the board. So if they have things like Canva and they use things like Canva or Adobe Spark, they can easily upload their fonts into there and keep everything consistent with their entire branding.
So how long does it take, like from the initial meeting to coming up with the brand and logo and everything for a client?
So usually I want to say probably the total about like 3 weeks for everything. I usually say like 2 to 4 weeks for branding. Usually I get it done sooner, but it all depends on the clients like back and forth as well.
Right.
So yeah, I would say I usually send them out the ideal client worksheet as soon as they finish with that. Then I ask them to go into their Pinterest board. Most of my clients, I have not had a problem with them at all, and they've got it done like super quick, and they're like, okay, I'm going to do it today. So then it gives me the chance to start on their brand like ahead of time. I always get like this vision as well, like as soon as I start working with somebody and they kind of tell me a little bit more about themselves and the emotions behind their brand that they want to bring forward, I have this idea with like fonts and that kind of thing, and kind of like sketch out little ideas too.
So what resources do you use? You mentioned Canva. You mentioned you also use Squarespace. So if I came to you with a problem or with a brand design and I needed a website too, like what ancillary services do you offer on top?
So I don't design with Canva, but I
Okay.
design like different templates with Canva. So I design my branding in Adobe Illustrator.
Okay.
That's what I use. And then from there, if my clients want custom Canva templates that they can use for their social media accounts, for their ebooks, for their lead magnets, for their webinars, that type of thing, I can go in and I can create custom templates that they can easily edit. But I add all the brand components myself. So I do that. I work with them on creating like cohesive templates. Then if they do want a Squarespace website,
Right.
I go into the website after the branding is finished. I ask them for like reference websites that they love. And then I kind of do a mock layout of the website first, usually the homepage first, make sure they approve the homepage, and then kind of go from there. So for website, I don't do the content myself. I ask them what content they want to add in. So that's not something that I offer.
Understood.
Yeah.
Cool. So how would listeners, viewers find you, find out more about you, hire you to design? And are you only dealing, it sounds like it, and I've had actually two of my last three interviews have been basically they only deal with women entrepreneurs. So who's like your ideal client and how do they find you?
So my ideal client is definitely a service-based entrepreneur. She's either a coach, maybe she's a hairstylist or makeup artist. Usually I work with service-based entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
And she can find me on Instagram at Wild Dreams Co. So wild underscore dreams underscore co. Wilddreams.co is my website, not .com, .co.
Right.
And at hello@wilddreams.co is my email address.
Awesome, Cassandra. Awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us this week. It was super awesome to meet you. I hope you get through this quarantine pandemic okay, and your boys are doing okay, right?
Thank you. Yes, they are good. We have a little pool outside, so they go in the pool and they're totally fine. They're
Awesome.
enjoying it. Yeah.
So some people want to know the location because we've had entrepreneurs. I've had New Zealand, England,
Oh, wow.
California. So where are you located?
I'm in New York in Westchester County, like about 45 minutes outside of the city.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
Cassandra, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
You did great. Cassandra Caruso, Wild Dreams Co., episode 19 for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, and we are out.